Writing. Love X Revenge. They say some words don't just end conversations, they end entire futures. Don't wait for me. That's what she said. And then she walked away. If you believe in love, in second chances, and in the kind of stories that refuse to stay buried, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Love X Revenge, because this story, it will stay with you long after it ends. It was raining the night she said it. The kind of rain that blurred headlights and turned the world into something distant and unreal. Ethan stood outside the hospital entrance, his hands shoved deep into his coat pockets, watching her. Ava looked different, not just tired, broken in a way that couldn't be fixed with sleep. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her hair tied back loosely, strands clinging to her face. There were shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. You didn't have to wait, she said softly, her voice barely audible over the rain. I always wait for you, Ethan replied, stepping closer. That's not going to change. Ava shook her head. No, it has to. He frowned, confusion knitting his brows. What are you talking about? She took a breath, and for a moment, he thought she might cry. I can't do this anymore, Ethan, she said. Not the job, not us, not anything. The words hit him harder than the cold rain soaking through his jacket. What do you mean, us? He asked, his voice tightening. We're not something you can just quit because you're tired. It's not just tired, she whispered. It's everything. The hospital, the patients, losing people every day, coming home and pretending I still have something left to give. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw something terrifying. Emptiness. I have nothing left, Ethan, she said. And you deserve someone who isn't hollow. He stepped closer, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. Don't, she said quickly. Ava, we can figure this out, he insisted. You don't have to go through it alone. I already am, she replied. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Don't wait for me, she said finally. The words felt unreal. What? He asked, as if he'd misheard. Don't wait for me, she repeated. Because I don't know if I'm ever coming back. And before he could stop her, before he could say anything else, she turned and walked away. Ethan stood there in the rain long after she disappeared, the echo of her words repeating in his mind like a cruel loop. Don't wait for me. But he did. For months, he waited. He kept her number saved, reread their old messages, drove past the hospital more times than he could count. Every time his phone buzzed, his heart jumped, hoping it was her. But it never was. Eventually, life forced him forward. Not because he wanted to move on, but because standing still hurt too much. 5 years passed. 5 long years filled with quiet acceptance and unanswered questions. Ethan changed. He built a career, started a business, surrounded himself with people who brought light back into his life. Slowly, carefully, he allowed himself to feel something again. And then he met Lily. She was everything Ava wasn't in those final days. Warm, steady, present. She didn't disappear. She didn't push him away. She chose him, every single day. And that was something Ethan had learned not to take for granted. So when he proposed, it felt right. Not like a replacement, not like a second choice, but like a new beginning. The wedding day arrived on a bright spring afternoon. The venue overlooked a quiet lake, sunlight dancing across the water. Guests filled the rows of white chairs, laughter and music blending into a perfect moment. Ethan stood at the altar, adjusting his tie, his heart pounding, not with fear, but with anticipation. This was it. This was the life he had built after everything. The music changed. The ceremony was about to begin. And then, everything stopped. At the edge of the aisle, just beyond the last row of guests, stood a woman. No one else seemed to notice her at first. But Ethan did, because even after 5 years, he would recognize her anywhere. Ava. She looked different, healthier, somehow. Her hair was longer, her posture straighter. The exhaustion that once clung to her had faded, but her eyes still held something deep, something unresolved. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. For a moment, the world around him blurred. The music, the guests, the ceremony, it all faded into the background. There was only her. And the past he thought he had buried. She didn't move. She didn't call out. She just stood there, watching him. And then, slowly, she took a step forward. The guests began to murmur, sensing the shift in the air. Lily, standing at the end of the aisle, followed Ethan's gaze. Her expression changed instantly. "Ethan," she whispered. He didn't respond. He couldn't. Ava walked down the aisle, each step measured, each movement heavy with unspoken words. When she finally reached him, she stopped just a few feet away. For a moment, neither of them spoke. 5 years of silence hung between them. "Ava," Ethan finally said, his voice barely steady. "What are you doing here?" She swallowed, her eyes glistening. "I told you not to wait for me," she said softly. His jaw tightened. "Yeah, you did. And you didn't," she added, glancing at Lily. There was no accusation in her tone. Just truth. "No," Ethan said. "I didn't." Ava nodded slowly. "I'm glad," she whispered. The words surprised him. "I didn't come here to stop your wedding," she continued. "I don't have that right." "Then why are you here?" he asked. She hesitated. "Because I couldn't let you get married without telling you the truth." The air grew still. "What truth?" Ethan asked. Ava took a shaky breath. "The night I left, I wasn't just burned out," she said. "I was breaking." He said nothing, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. "I was making mistakes at work," she continued. "Small ones at first, but in my job, small mistakes can cost lives." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "I was terrified," she said. "Not of losing my career, but of hurting someone. Of becoming the kind of nurse who causes the very pain she's supposed to heal." Ethan's chest tightened. "So I left," she said. "Not just you. Everything." Without a word, he asked quietly. "I thought it would be easier," she admitted. "For both of us." "It wasn't," he said. "I know," she whispered. Silence fell again. "What changed?" he asked. Ava's lips trembled slightly. "I got help," she said. "Therapy. Time away. I learned how to live again, how to feel again." She looked at him, her eyes full of something raw and unguarded. "And when I finally felt whole, the first person I thought about was you." Ethan's heart pounded painfully. "But 5 years had passed," she continued. "And I knew, I might be too late." "Then why come?" he asked, his voice almost breaking. "Because I needed you to know," she said. "That I didn't leave because I stopped loving you." The words hit him like a wave. "I left because I loved you too much to let you watch me fall apart." Tears filled her eyes. "And I came back because a part of me never stopped hoping that maybe you'd still be there." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. At the woman he had once planned a future with. At the woman who had broken him, and who, somehow, still held a piece of his heart. Then he looked at Lily. She stood quietly, her expression calm but unreadable. Not angry, not crying, just waiting, waiting for him. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. Past and present, love and loss, choice. Finally, Ethan took a step back. Ava's breath caught. "I did wait," he said slowly. "For a long time." Her eyes filled with hope. "But not forever," he added. That hope shattered. "I loved you," he said. "And a part of me probably always will." Ava's tears fell freely now. "But you told me not to wait," he continued. "And eventually, I learned how to let go." He turned toward Lily. "And she's the reason I didn't stay broken." Lily's eyes softened. Ethan reached for her hand. "I choose the person who stayed," he said. Ava closed her eyes, pain washing over her face. But she nodded. "I understand," she whispered. She took a step back. "I'm sorry for everything." And then, just like 5 years ago, she turned and walked away. But this time, Ethan didn't try to stop her. He didn't chase her. He simply watched, as the past finally let him go. The ceremony resumed. The vows were spoken, and as Ethan slipped the ring onto Lily's finger, he realized something. Love isn't just about who you can't forget. It's about who stays, who chooses you, who builds a future with you, instead of leaving you behind in the rain. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Love X Revenge for more unforgettable stories of love, loss, and second chances. Because sometimes, the hardest goodbyes are the ones that lead us exactly where we're meant to be.